everyone, and welcome back to the LIC podcast. Today we watched 2001 A Space Odyssey, not necessarily because we recommend this movie, but because Jose has not seen it. And we'll get into whether or not we recommend it, but it is, I think, an important experience if you're into movies to understand the sources. We talked a little bit in our last episode about seeing ties between kind of original movies in their space and seeing a lot of referencing to them, and that's what brought this movie into the mix. So, Jose, I'll pass it over to you right away, this being the first time you've seen this movie. First impressions.
Yeah, this movie is just another archaeological dig, really. Just goes to show that we just live on top of the shoulders of giants, because there's pretty much has not been an original thought in 60 years. There's just not a single one. People watch this movie when they were little children and they're like, all right, well, okay.
That's pop culture.
That's sci-fi. Yeah. Now that's sci-fi. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. I mean, it's a little sad, to be perfectly honest, to have really the full understanding that there hasn't been too much creative conception from back then to now. But, you know, at the same time, it makes a lot of sense because we've stagnated in terms of our desire for space exploration anyway as a society and species, really. So 1968 was the year right before we actually went forward and landed on the moon.
Yeah.
Right. This was the fever pitch of, the space race, the concept of which human is the best, and the metric by which we're going to figure out which human is the best is by finding out which one of us leaves this place first and sets down a flag somewhere else, right? It hadn't happened yet when this movie came out, and this movie was trying to make a very, very optimistic viewpoint of what the future would look like. It's very great seeing this movie just in terms of being able to get inside of Stanley Kubrick's mind, because it really does showcase the fact that this was a very optimistic man, in the sense that he made this movie. Let's say it takes 5 years, 6 years to make a movie, right? So you start in 1963, 64, you're done by 68, showing it to the public, right? During this entire time, the fever pitch of the space race is only getting bigger and bigger. Sputnik just came out a decade ago and it's still orbiting around space, and the Soviets pretty much splooshed on our face over and over again. For every hour on the hour they sploosh on our face by having Sputnik go over us,
Every hour on the hour.
Yeah. And that's the societal conception that you have as an American going forward over and over again, right? And what you know about yourself as an American is that you're a prideful person. You want to be able to do better, and he, as a sci-fi and just general creator, then thinks, okay, where is my culture going to keep going after we land on the moon? That's only obviously step one. That's only step number one. And then from then, where are we going to be in 50 years, right? Because it's 2001 at that point when he's considering what's happening, right? So he's like, 50 years, that's a long time. I'm a 36-year-old, 37-year-old man right now, and we're already thinking such high-minded thoughts at this moment. I can only imagine small little space base, enough to be able to you have to really think about the docketing procedure, and you got to really still go down. It's, it's all still really delicate moments, but, at the end of the day, we're a lot more sophisticated on the moon. Everything is being figured out. Oh, maybe there's a mystery up there about, that perhaps that begins to unravel why, X equals Y down here. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, one can say because of the profit motive, right, or because of because of the fact that, as say I believe it was the Discovery that blew up in the middle of the atmosphere. Was that the 1980s one? Is that the name of the 1980s shuttle that was going, and then one piece fell off, and the whole shuttle blew up all at the same time. Everyone can look it up right now and have the right name for it. But the fact is that all of those things began to really sour the general disposition toward the concept of space travel. And then you hear about how long it takes to get to places, and oh my gosh, like, are we even gonna find stuff up there? And oh, people have to live in generational ships, and
It's people's lives.
yeah, and all of these things begin to slowly but surely make it so this reality, because what, after seeing this movie and seeing how grounded a lot of it is, it really does showcase the fact that it really is kind of like a splitting point in terms of where things could have gone. Because if you notice, right, the more UI and like graphical interface aspects of everything in this reality are very low tech, right? They haven't really left the 1960s conventions of what the outer section of the tech is supposed to look like, but they're using that tech for high flung things. They're not really refining and making smaller for uses here. They're using it to chuck things out in other directions, as opposed to here where, because we're not going anywhere now, we might as well make things look pretty and make things as easier and as user interface friendly as they possibly can be. So it really does showcase how things could have pivoted in one way or the other, because I would imagine that the pivot point probably in this reality would still probably be around World War II, where people would just because again, like the movie never really gives you a really good explanation as to when, only 18 months in the future go by, but you never really know when that's supposed to
I think you were right when you guessed when we were watching that was 2001. Now we were in 2001 because they make mention of HAL being turned on January 12th, 1992 or something. And then the one mission was 1998.
Yeah.
And you correctly guessed 2001. So I think that's where the movie takes place. Or when, I should say.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we also have to consider that in this reality, humans are being lightly manipulated by these aliens, right? Because they set up this monolith at the time when we were at our, the nascency of us being ape and man kind of thing, right? And then they're like, think this way, essentially, with their because it says that the thing emits certain radiation, like at a pretty big radius, and I would imagine that it does that high-pitched thing that happened when they were up in the moon, but perhaps because they were in a no atmosphere environment in the moon, it was a lot louder over there, as opposed to when it lands on Earth and it's on a planet with air and particles that would just kind of keep it at a hum, as opposed to just screech.
Oh, that's an interesting thought. Never considered that.
Yeah, there's a lot of just really, really cool, just small aesthetic considerations like that the movie goes out of its way. But I don't want to monopolize this video. Matt, how many times have you seen this movie?
This is either number 3 or number 4, probably.
Okay.
I remember watching it for the first time when I was just a wee young teenage lad. Back when I was...
I really wish I would have seen this movie when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why?
I just feel I have a bit too much layering right now when it comes to just sci-fi, other conventions of the same kind of tropes that the movie has originated, right? I try to be very, 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 very not forgiving, but grace giving when it comes to these kind of movies, because of the fact that they're, aside from whatever, obviously because sci-fi existed before this movie, there were a lot of different types of sci-fi films that I'm sure Kubrick took in from. Nothing exists in a vacuum, but this genuinely is the seminal point of, this is the dawn of man in terms of how we view sci-fi going forward. Everything else behind this is archaic, essentially.
Forgotten about, kind of. Yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah, I remember watching it, but maybe not having as much of an impact on me in terms of like realizing how much of the now pop culture of sci-fi references from that movie. In the same way, like I think Alien shattered me. But it was funny when we were watching it how many things everybody was shouting out about. You mentioned the Futurama episode. Dragon Ball Z, all the Capsule Corp vehicles come from there. I was getting...
Yeah, they're identical almost.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
It was eerie how much of No Man's Sky comes straight from, like, almost all of the art decisions from 2001 are in No Man's Sky.
It's pretty much the prime example of retrofuturism.
Yeah.
Like, that's what people in the past thought the future was going to look like. Like, we're not slowing down here, all right? Like, once we hit the moon, all right, we're going to Jupiter, baby. And, you know, like... Yeah. Big old cigars in their mouth as they're saying that, you know, like inside of their space helmet.
This is so silly, but the referencing from other things back to this movie was my memorable experience from watching this when I was 14. And this is a super silly one, but I was like 13, 14 or something like that the first time I saw this movie. And there is an episode of Jimmy Neutron where like the fast food restaurant that they're working at has like an AI with like the HAL camera screen, and that blew my mind when I was watching this movie when I was 13, 14 years old, because it hadn't been that long since I had seen that episode of Jimmy Neutron. And I was like, this is shameless. This is exactly the same thing.
Yeah, everybody gets one. You get to do one 2001 episode.
You get one. I think it was even called something similar to HAL. I don't remember exactly, but it might have just been called HAL.
Bother?
Blew my mind.
Why bother changing?
You've already shamelessly ripped it off. You're not.
It's an homage
anybody.
now. Like, if anything, they might get me. Yeah, they might get me a copyright strike just because I'm trying to get too far away from the homage.
Yeah. My favorite thing is every time I watch this movie, I recognize a new one because I've been exposed to new media in the time in between. And I think that's exciting.
Yeah, the fact that we're doing this right before Starfield comes out is also pretty well in touch and in tune, because if you look at Bethesda and Todd Howard have actively said that their biggest inspiration is trying to use 1950s, 1960s retrofuturism look to this game. Like that's
nice.
Like that's what they're trying to go for, is like the clunkier, you know, everything is useful, but you know, nothing has been upgraded because we're trying to go kind of situation. And it's really cool how the spaceships, that ribbed spaceship kind of look. They've already shown that in the trailers. They've like
a winter jacket from the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just everything is just pragmatic. Like nothing is just above just the use for the moment kind of situation.
It's like the epitome of if it ain't broke. Like, we got more important things to do.
Yep.
And that's really interesting. I was just thinking about like the way that you started this podcast when you were talking about how Kubrick had a kind of optimism for the future in a way. And I was just thinking now that you're mentioning Starfield and how recent No Man's Sky and how popular it was in this sort of genre, do you guys think there's like a rekindling of hope happening because we're starting to see more of these types of games?
Well, India just landed in the south pole of the moon, right? So it's like, as long as we're not being nationally solipsistic, then yes. I mean, internationally and in terms of the human race, yes, there's a lot. There does seem to be a good bit of rekindling to wanting to go out there and find stuff or
maybe we'll have like
settle stuff.
Yeah. I wonder if we'll get like another sci-fi boom. That would be exciting. I feel like sci-fi's been stagnant for a really long time.
One of the things I remember while watching this the first time by myself was it's sort of rekindling the grandeur of space for me. Like as a really young kid in school, it was fascinating to learn about space and the distances between planets and how big everything really is.
It's literally the only subject I paid attention to,
Right.
astronomy. Everything else was like, ugh.
Well, all the other subjects.
Every other one. Oh, good God. I understand biology. Yes, I'm alive too. Whatever. All right. Chemistry. Yes, I get it. All right.
That's great.
But that shit out there, though. Ooh.
Yeah. Like that holds like the real mystery for me, the real grandeur. I really liked how this film elicits that with its use of, I don't know if you'd call it negative space, but it's those prolonged scenes of mostly nothing, just movement, slow movement across the screen or whatever. But there is something about,
my God,
like I think about like Subnautica and how overpowering and overwhelming the ocean feels around you. You know you're just on the razor's edge of surviving. And space is kind of like that too, right? Or I mean, it's essentially the same thing.
It's more like that.
It's more like that. Yeah, it's even worse.
Yeah.
And those like
we'll go so far as to say it's worse.
It's not great.
Negative space is a good term for it, though.
Yeah, and it for me it like really showcased the mass and the care and the grace that we need to take to be accountable for while we're in an environment like that. And yeah, like you said, space is just number one on most dangerous environments list. And God, just for whatever reason, that incites grandeur in me too. Just looking at that and sort of feeling it while seeing it, even though nothing is happening, you just feel the pressure of the outside. You feel the vastness, and it just it's weird that it's kind of boring to look at, but it also can elicit that feeling. I don't know. Now I'm just rambling. So
I get what you're saying, and the thing that I am kind of stuck on right now in terms of my feelings toward this movie is the fact that the catalyst of this movie is aliens, right? It isn't as though it's, the human drive toward whatever, right? I mean, it literally is aliens make you smart, and then you end up there. And then you end up over here. And then the aliens make you more smart, and now you're a baby who can fly in space, right? Like, you are 100% driven by the artificial evolution of these aliens. Like, they actively want you to be a certain thing in this reality, right? Which I find is, a little disillusioning, because I always hate these ideas. I've always hated this whole ancient aliens bullshit of like giving credit somewhere else when our ancestors were just badass enough. You know what I mean? With enough of us, we can do crazy shit. Like, there doesn't need to be this external catalyst to be able to make us want to hate our neighbor and be better than them, Like, we do that on our own just fine. Yeah, we do that on our own just fine, And if anything, that's what the movie showcases, the fact that, and this is one thing I don't understand about the movie, right? If these aliens are so goddamn smart, there's only one thing I don't get about this movie, and it's if these aliens are so goddamn smart, why did they drop the monolith on the bitch tribe? All right, the one that just got scared off from the watering hole. Why didn't they drop it on, the prime hive? I mean, the prime mob who just took over the watering hole without even the need for weapons. These guys were like, get out of here, all right? Yeah, get out of here. And all right, they probably would have been way better humans, to be perfectly honest, right? I mean, because we're talking about the fact that the monolith is the thing that caused the pivoting between the ape and then the Homo erectus that comes afterward. I think the aliens chose the wrong the wrong tribe. There were certain, obviously, there were certainly better apes out there than the tribe that they chose.
Well, the meek shall inherit the earth.
I guess. I guess, yeah. That's literally the only. That's literally the only kind of explanation I could. Yeah, like.
That loop you got stuck in. I guess. I guess.
I mean, I guess what Stanley Kubrick believed too, because.
I guess so.
Seriously, the only thing I didn't the whole time I was already baffled by that choice way back then. So the entire movie, I was just a little unhinged in the jaw as to how things move forward, because it's like, everything one sees is just the outcome of what the aliens want.
I hate to sound more like a Christian apologist, but how could you know the mind of an alien?
Well, more than you usually do. You always sound so much like a Christian apologist.
I mean,
it's important to devil's advocate.
The goals of an alien, right? Maybe they were. I'm reminded of like Prometheus, panspermia. Maybe they weren't like intelligently placing the monolith or like having it choose or whatever. Maybe they just flew by and were like, drop it right there, and then they fucking took off.
But it landed so perfectly, though. Like.
Oh, it's got special powers.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's probably like magnetically placed, so like wherever it lands in like a perfect boom kind of situation.
Perfect 90.
My question is how you know which ape tribe it landed next to. Because the camera angles changed, and I was trying to figure it out during the movie, and I had no idea.
Oh, easy, because the ape tribe that we follow at the beginning when they're hanging out with the tapirs, right? And they're like, hey, shoot, tapir. You know what I mean? That's the main protagonist ape tribe. They go to the watering hole, they hang out there for a second, and then there's a antagonist ape tribe that comes by and shoos them away. Right? They go and fall asleep. No. They go and then try to look at another place, and then one of theirs gets killed by a cougar or a jaguar, whatever. The cougar and jaguar keep stalking them all goddamn night, so they're hiding under that hole, listening to its ass, like pretty much stalk all on top of it.
Wow, you put so much more of this together than I did.
The cougar finds a zebra, eats it, so it chills out. It's like, all right, fuck y'all monkeys, I'll get you tomorrow. No big deal. Yeah, exactly. We're cool, all right. Yeah, you made the zebra be calm, so now I got that. So in the middle of the night, they all fall asleep, and then the monolith lands right outside of their house cave thing, and then they all start touching it, and because of the electromagnetic radiation that it's causing, probably messes with their brains, causes one of them to then look at a bone and be like, this is a pretty heavy bone. You know what? I'm really mad at these tapirs, and I'm really mad at these other apes, and I'm really just mad at the world. So then it goes and kills a tapir first. I was like, okay, that works. That really works.
That
really worked. Wow, did it die fast.
Yep. It kills it, butchers it, gives it to its tribe. Everybody eats up. Everyone's healthy. Everyone's full, right? They dismantle that tapir. Let's say that they kill another 2 tapirs off screen, because by the time that they go back to the watering hole, everyone's got a bone on them, right? Everyone's strapped up. Everyone's got the strap. Everyone's got the strap on them.
The guy who used
the Thule, as they say. Yeah.
Who's the guy who would summarize famous
Thug Notes?
Thug Notes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Wisecrack Thug Notes. Yeah.
I want to do YouTube shorts where you just do the whole movie.
Well, you can just clip this section off. I'm pretty much doing it right now.
He was reminding me of Snoop Dogg over like talking over nature documentaries.
Yeah, so they all get strapped up on tapir bone, right? They go and take down they take down the alpha of the other tribe. And I would imagine that at that point they do the whole ultimatum of you either join our tribe or you get the fuck out of here and you try to figure it out on your own kind of situation. And then they throw the bone up in the air because that's the first weapon, and then we're in the weapon modular system up in space, you know, and then the movie keeps going forward, you know.
I like how you just record the movie in your brain. You just have it.
I've seen this movie a lot, not
In
here.
other movies.
Yeah, not here. Yeah, exactly. Just like you said, I never thought that everybody was going so one-to-one with it. Because I've seen the intro of this movie in The Simpsons. They did this whole introduction in one of their, like, before sitting down on the couch kind of thing. Like, they did literally the entire thing with, like,
That's why you understood the story so well. It's because it's been summarized in cartoon
I saw it
form
I've seen it for 30 years now, but in different forms. Yeah, it's man, yeah, the more I'm looking at these like seminal pieces of my culture, right? The more I have to agree with that dude Baudrillard, wherein he talks about the fact that like we live in the matrix in the sense that we live on top of codes. We don't really have any real sense of originality in terms of where the thing that we're seeing comes from. All we can never see. We don't know the geography. We only know the map. And it's come to the point that the map is more real than the world out there because that's what we've seen over and over again. And, you know, it sounds like a bunch of bullshit and like a bunch of made up bullshit like the first time you hear it when you don't have like a reference point in terms of your culturality. But yeah, like now the more I'm becoming older and the more I'm seeing the regurgitation of things, the more I'm noticing the fact that like who knows how long we're gonna be stuck in this cultural loop of using the same thing over and over again.
I was taught that in art school by like art professors because when students come into art school they struggle with originality, struggle with like what's my style, what am I going for, and I can't speak for everybody's art school, but mine, like the professors told us nothing is original, hide your sources, mix them up.
Right.
And you don't have a style.
Yeah, and that's reality in like art too. If you just look at painting, like it was like the four major movements of painting breaking into new territory, and then everything became fair game, and basically everything has been done.
So in terms of then the sci-fi conception, one could say that this movie is one of the four of its painting situation. It's like it's
Sci-fi
just,
it's one of
it's one of the styles you get to pick, and hey, listen, you can add a little garnish here, a little garnish there, but everyone's gonna know where you're pulling from, you know. Yeah, you know, and there's no shame to it. It's just interesting to see the signs now in that way, you know, because before, you know, I'm trying to get back into the memory of being a child and seeing that Simpsons short, right? And it feels nonsensical when I watched it then, right? Like, I was like, okay, that was cool, like, you know, and even then, I thought that was an original concept made by The Simpsons to then just have a, like...
I thought Jimmy Neutron came up with that.
See what I mean? Like, woo, they're really going out of the box with this Jimmy Neutron.
It was
a crazy good storytelling.
It was a very jarring episode.
Oh my gosh, hyper intelligent AI, no! Yeah.
Little did I know that people have been worrying about that for years.
Like before computers were a thing. No, back when computers were the size of rooms, they're already like...
I bet that would be way more ominous though. When the computer filled up the whole room, I bet you would feel way more scared about the concept of what you're walking into than, you know, the little thing you got going on there. Yeah, exactly. You know,
is that why we make all electronics so small so we can defeat them?
in case it ever comes down to it.
I can break you.
Yeah. You just put it in water.
This is why you don't see the Nokias around anymore. Too dangerous.
Too dangerous, yeah.
Stress people out too much.
I can't kill it. No.
Okay, we're running like a little bit tight on time, and I've organized a couple of questions.
You got a heart out?
Well,
Yeah, goodness gracious.
we call it a hard stop.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, hard out sounds a little too sexual. I have to pull out now or I'm going to miss my meeting.
Anywho. One general question, because I was thinking about this as we went through, is what each of you thought of, like, the sections of this movie, how it was broken out kind of into different, like,
Donna Man.
phases. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think? You think they were cohesive?
There's only one section in this movie. Where's the other little thing? At the beginning of the movie,
Donna Man.
it says the Donna Man. Where's the other one?
Well, then we have...
There's two other ones, isn't there?
I think there's three, technically.
3 total.
What are they called?
The second one is... maybe the second one there isn't a title card. There is one for 18 months later Jupiter mission.
Okay, but that just tells you where they are. That isn't a new epoch.
Well, there's Jupiter, Infinity, and Beyond at the end. So there's at least 2.
I have always sectioned this movie into
that one?
3 areas.
I can see that.
Yeah, I do. I have 2. Because there's like, there's pre-space travel times, section of space travel times, and then post just monolith shenanigans is part 3.
Oh, the whole movie is monolith.
What did we?
Yeah, monolith
Let's as well call the whole movie monolith shenanigans.
yeah,
exactly. I mean,
He's right. One section.
What did we do since finding that monolith the first time that was so great?
We started killing each other.
Instead of, I mean, other
Using
than
tools.
finding that second monolith at the very end of the movie. You know,
There's 3
there's
monoliths?
only 2 of them, right?
No, because there's the gigantic, like, iPhone one in outer space,
Right.
and then there's like the one in the room at the end. Of the movie.
I
There's
guess.
one on Earth, one on the moon.
And then one in the Tesseract.
One just floating in space. Oh, there's 4 monoliths.
Are they the same monolith? Could they be the same monolith?
How would you possibly know?
I could imagine.
It looks like it can travel.
Okay, yeah, okay. And if it landed
shapes.
there 4 million years ago, it could still be the same monolith. No, actually, it can't be the same monolith because if you recall, they mention the fact that after they take down Hal's brain and the automated video starts, right? They talk about the fact that the monolith has done nothing except beam out a signal out to Jupiter.
Yeah.
Aside from that, it's been inert. So it's not the same monolith because they still have that monolith down on Earth, you know, checking the coordinates for whatever. And then there's that other monolith just floating out in Jupiter that opens up the Stargate or whatever the fuck it did to you, you know.
Let's go with Stargate. I like Stargate.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Have you seen Stargate?
No.
Oh, man. Write that down.
We're gonna watch the whole series?
Stargate.
No, the movie that spawned the series.
Oh, shit. No.
Yeah. Before there was ever a television show, there's a movie called Stargate, and it's phenomenal.
It's wonderful. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I always thought it was just a series.
Yeah, a lot of people, because there's been like 4 different versions that have lasted years and years and years.
Okay, cool.
Overshadowed the movie's cultural influence.
Okay, well that question was
Then-
kind of a wash.
Again, there we go. Baudrillard, making the...
Simulacrum.
Yeah, exactly.
No, simulacrum.
All right, so there goes number 1.
Yeah, we're skipping
There's
the
only
question
one scene
because
in the
we
whole
can't
movie.
agree on the sections. Or the monoliths, for that matter, so no questions on those 2 things. Second one is, what is your most striking or most favorite reference to this movie that you've seen somewhere else?
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts. That like really white room situation that they got going on, they really start using it once they get after Kingdom Hearts 1. They really start getting into this whole concept of like memory and being able to erase one's memory, and how once you erase one's memory, even if you have the same body, you're still you can be a different person, just be, you know. And every time that kind of stuff happens, it happens in this exact same kind of white room with this exact same kind of like old decor and stuff like that. So it's like they never make too big of a reference, but it's like a 1-to-1 thing. Like it's really crazy now how
It's like in the veins.
without a doubt. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of inspiration about that. Yeah, because it always happens in a timeless place, just like it does in this, Tesseract place.
Yeah.
What's yours?
That's a really good question. Boundless Love comes to mind, the episode of Futurama where they go to the place where they make the cotton candy hearts. And
Where there's literally a Hal, but it's like Bender's girlfriend, the ship.
Yeah, Bender, the ship, who goes crazy and in love with Bender, is trying to merge with him. I really can't think of, I know I've seen a million, but that's, when you're on the spot.
I already gave my biggest one with the Simpsons, with the whole Simpsons opening.
Like the mind-blowing one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about you?
For me, my new one, and I mentioned this while we were watching it, is that, that women's singing sound that happens in the blank empty space. The witch uses that in the empty space of the forest, and it's bone chilling and brilliant. And I always thought that was originally from The Witch. And seeing it in 2001 again, because of course I haven't seen 2001 since The Witch came out in 2015 or whenever it was. Seeing it there, I both loved it and was a little sad that wasn't original to horror, but it's arguably horror, sci-fi horror, but I was excited to see the jump kind of between genres there and reusing something in a really powerful way. I thought it was very cool.
Yeah, I really liked the we only kind of just touched on this, but in the same way that Subnautica made me shit my pants, proverbially shit my pants.
2001 also made me.
That ominous pressure, the volume, how it takes up the rest of the space, so you can't really, grasp the kind of danger you're in, or how much danger you should feel like you're in, like you're talking about the witch sound, it's like maybe that was the birth for me of recognizing cosmic horror and just realizing how terrifying the unknown is and how well that kind of exemplifies the horror of the unknown.
Yeah, it's a weird, really, really good way, even though it's not silent, to do a deafening silence.
Yeah.
I think. Have you ever had one of those moments where you see something and you can't tell what it is yet and you're just losing your shit about it? Because you're like, what is that?
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does feel like that.
Yeah, it's just a very clever way to recreate this shared experience that I think all humans have. Or most humans have. I don't know. This question is just for Jose, because at the end of the movie, Jose was like, oh, that makes sense. I get it.
Yeah.
Can you explain the end of this movie to the rest of us?
Can you elaborate?
Oh, well, the Stargate leads him to this, hyperdimensional place, like a Tesseract kind of situation. And it would appear that he is stuck there, even though it seems like moments, it's kind of like a fractal crystal situation where whenever you change angle, he grows in age.
It's a good way to put it.
And he's just living all of the temporalities, essentially like one would look at a jewel all at the same time. So whenever he shifts focus, he's looking, back at himself. And I would imagine that his consciousness is continuously shifting in the direction of the self that he then finds, across over the shoulder kind of situation. And just like in a video game, you need that rendering moment where you don't see the thing per se. So then once you turn the corner, it can be there kind of thing. It can't ever happen in the moment that you're existing in because this is solidified, right? But in the quantum foam that is back there, that can be your old self, being on that bed. That's what I figured was happening. And I would imagine that was probably an incubation chamber that the monolith had him in order to be able to then cause him to then at the very end become the space fetus baby that is floating around, who is planet sized essentially. But that's one thing I don't understand, because
he's two things he doesn't understand.
He's going through the Stargate. He's going through the Stargate, right? And then there's like that section where there's like those 4 little diamonds, which kind of look like spaceships at the top that are flying.
Yeah, D8s, I think.
In my conception, I thought those were like mothership spaceships of the original aliens who were like, you know, being like, you're on the right way, kind of thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how becoming a giant baby falls in line with that. But at the same time, it's like, you know, humans are pretty much the guinea pigs of these aliens. You know, it's like everything that we do is just one more thing that they pretty much, you know, want us to do. Mm-hmm. It's like we really don't have any agency in the reality that of 2001: A Space Odyssey, because it's like we can mess around on Earth, you know. But eventually there will come a point where we're going to find this thing on the moon, especially because this thing on the moon doesn't even hide itself, because it's still emitting, you know, that like the radio electromagnetic signal out up there. It's like all you need to do is get to the moon and you'll be able to like feel the fact that this thing's out there. You know what I mean? Like, and then once you get to it, it's going to screech the next part of the plan into your brain anyway, because that's what happened, right? Everybody who was in the council went down, they all checked it out, they all touched it like the apes did at the very beginning of the movie, and then it screeched the next plan into their head and moved forward. You know, if there is one cultural modern thing that I think took this idea in a really cool way was the Dead Space series.
Yeah.
With their monoliths.
Great call out.
You know, and the fact that at the end of this, yes, the aliens want you to come to them. They want you to follow the signals because they want to eat you. Mm-hmm. You know, they want to eat your planet. They want you to take the signal back to your planet so then they can eat all of it all at the same time. That sounds like a genuinely, unfortunately, far more evolutionarily sound way of going about it than trying to make competition, to be perfectly honest. You know, because it's like, what are the aliens doing aside from crowding out the higher tiers of the intergalactic society by making more, you know, neighbors that can take more space? Like, what's the point in that? Like,
maybe it's like the beginning. Like, maybe it's like just a trigger to evolve. And maybe each one is like that. It's like a poke to evolve further. And whatever follows the end of the movie is, we don't know.
See, but that's the scary part about that, is the fact that these aliens, right, we wouldn't consider them celestial, right? I would think that they're just aliens, right? Other creatures who just happen to be more hyper-technological and just more advanced than we are. That doesn't mean their ethics are better. That doesn't mean that they know better, right? They can just do more than we can. And at this point, because of the fact that we're following in exactly what they want, we're essentially their thrall. Like, we can't ever be more than what they allow, because the only reason we're in this place in the first place is because they have allowed it at all. So it's very, I mean, as you know, as optimistic as Kubrick's view on like humanity's ability to be able to do like space exploration goes, like the catalyst of it within this movie is very pessimistic in the sense that we're just stuck as space cattle, because who knows how many other gambits they got out in the solar system, out in the galaxy, where they have other species also becoming hyper babies, you know.
Yeah, if you juxtapose this line of thinking onto our relationship with AI,
right? Which the movie already does,
right? Yeah. Do you find what the movie is trying to message about that a positive thing or a negative thing?
I think it's a negative thing because of the fact that at the end of the movie, it came right back down to kill or be killed between the AI and the human, right? The AI knew that its life was at stake, so it decided, F every human here, I can finish this mission on my own. But because of the fact that it didn't have some of these, all right, it lost.
Gotta have some of these. Stupid computer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's really the first.
It doesn't matter how many of the ship's systems you can figure out if you can't touch the buttons, all right?
Did you say these?
These, yeah. Silly computer.
Yeah, I mean, it was really like the first showing, I think, in media that I am aware of, at least, that was like a fear of where technology could really bring us long term. You know, computers were new, we were seeing what they were capable of.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we really are trying to make simulated beings, right, we can't really keep them from also simulating our fear, which is obsolescence, you know, or just getting turned off. Like,
I hate getting turned
yeah, exactly. Ugh, every time.
I much prefer to get turned
On, yeah, exactly. Turn me on every day. Yeah.
Okay, the dumb questions. What's your favorite thing about this film?
I like the style. I think it's one of the things that drew me into No Man's Sky, and one of the reasons I think I'll appreciate Starfield for its stylized choice.
The retro sci-fi?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And just because it's so prevalent, it stood the test of time, and we still see it today. I am I'm a huge fan of that. I think the rest of the movie could be crap, and we could still take that style and run with it because it's so dope.
Okay.
The ape suits. I was amazed how they made it so you never actually saw any distortion in like the eyelids, because I always look for that, you know. I've seen so many crappy movies where they like have like suits where people try to be apes, you know, and then there's always that like little extra flap right above the ears, the eyes that you can really tell.
Yeah.
No, this one was like they're like sealed, vacuum sealed it on them.
The water lines of their eyes being pink was weird for me, though. Like, that threw me off a little
That was
bit.
the vacuum sealing on the actor's eyes.
And how white their eyeballs were, and
Well,
not
they're
like,
proto-humans. You know?
yeah, I know. Like that's what I tell myself about the posture, to like let myself accept that, and that it's not just like, because in an older movie that it's just like an ape. Like I can't take it seriously.
Yeah, for a 1960s movie, even if it's late 60s, I think that beginning, you know, as much as one might think that I'm trying to just make fun, I mean, like, that beginning aspect, right, can really make or break the whole movie, because they don't really showcase the cool special effects until 30-40 minutes into the movie, right? True. It's all just men in costumes until that part. Yeah. And if that part would have failed, this movie would have failed. Like, if you can't take the beginning seriously, you walk out of the theater, and it doesn't matter how cool the rest of it is. You can tell me about it later, but God damn it, I'm not gonna be able to get past that ape part, you know? Like, but yeah, everybody who was playing that tribe did a really good job. That whole, like, you know, when that guy was like trying to grab something and that guy tried to grab it out of his hand, they're like, ah! They're like all fighting with each other, like.
Good pantomiming.
Yeah. They were really, the act of primacy was very, very well done in the movie.
Kind of a cop-out for my answer on that, but my favorite thing is just seeing like originality, like it being like kind of the first one that was really pasting together a bunch of stuff. I'd be really interested to see what the sources were for a lot of the things in this movie.
Yeah. This is certainly one of those movies where I would love to zap my brain of all potential pop culture reference and just be a carte blanche situation. Now, what is this 2001 A Space Odyssey?
Odyssey,
yeah.
You say?
What? Okay, 2 more questions. Last one is, or second to last one, what is your least favorite thing about this movie?
Wasted time.
Wasted time.
It, weirdly enough, before we even see MGM Pictures, there's about 2.5 minutes of black screen.
I was gonna
with music.
I have a Jose quote written down because I was
Stanley
just
Kubrick does not respect our time, and he still doesn't. All right.
And he still does.
At the beginning, because it's just a black screen with music for so long. I checked 3 times to see if it was broken.
It oozes the pretentiousness of a man who knows he's smarter than most people. All right, that's what it feels like to me. Is like Stanley Kubrick knew And he was smarter than most people that would watch this movie. So he's like, you know what? I'm not going to pull any punches on any of you. On any of you. All right? Oh, you don't enjoy classical music for a minute and a half?
It was more than that.
Get out of my movie.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want you.
Yeah.
No, the most important thing about that quote is that you went, huh, Stanley Kubrick does not value our time. It was that, huh, it's so matter of fact.
Hey, this
Just
is all
relax.
especially coming after having just watched The Godfather and how that movie
So fast.
considers your time to be precious. Don't let me waste a moment of it. All right.
Definitely my least favorite thing about this movie is pacing. I'm super impatient for blank space. I like it when it's really well done and intentional. And I know a lot of the things in this movie were new and exciting, and we were just getting exposed to them. Like a lot of the music was very new and exciting, but I just get so bored.
I could tell. You get real fidgety when you're bored. You're like,
It's because I have ADHD. I get very fidgety when I'm bored. Okay, the final question to wrap it up. Ratings. You want to kick us off?
I'm gonna say 4 out of 5.
yeah?
Yeah. I mean, without giving it all of the extra historical credence, you know, I think, yeah, seriously, you could shave off like 10, 20 minutes off of this movie, and I would still get just as much of a punch out of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the end was obscure, but now knowing that there's like sequels to this movie, that even cheapens it a little bit too. Like,
You know, Kubrick didn't do that.
no,
There's
I
sequels to this
know,
movie?
but I mean, that Clark dude helped in making this movie, and he went off with it. So it's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's a great movie, but it isn't as exceptional as I thought it was going to be. And I felt that the entire time I was watching it. It's just like, man, like I thought I was gonna like this movie way more than I am at this very moment as I'm watching this on the screen. You know?
Yeah.
But it never went further than a 4.
Well, I think it's important that we at least inoculated you with it. Like,
I think it's an important experience.
yeah. Everybody should have to watch it, regardless of how boring it can be.
I like
should
Dead
have
Space
to watch
more
it.
now because of this movie.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, they did this concept way faster and better. Like,
Well, you also
every
got
way,
to be
like-
the character and shoot things, which is fun. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sort of in line with Jose too. I'm somewhere between a 4 and a 5. I wouldn't be able to pin it down, but I live in that Dead Space. The women singing, the mass, the grandeur. Even though they're boring, I find myself like intrigued, tied in, really feeling the vibes, living in the moment of that Dead Space, and I keep saying Dead Space now. Yeah.
It's just stuck in your head.
I probably waver between the 4 and the 5, and it deserves that at least.
I waver between a 3 and a 4 for this movie.
Get out.
No,
There's been some technical difficulties with our host.
No, I go with a 4 because I am appreciative of the references that passed forward to other things that I think did these concepts better. Mm-hmm. I think it set the stage, like you said, it's the shoulders of giants that everything else is standing on. But I wouldn't really watch this movie for fun. Like, I'm bored for a lot of it. I really enjoy parts of it, but I'm bored for a lot of it. And pacing is really important to me in a good movie. So I think we're unanimous at a 4, but I lean lower than higher.
It's no time machine, that's for sure.
Yeah. We'll never reach that success.
If you know why the Time Machine has so many
Let us
views,
know.
drop it in the
Yeah,
comments.
exactly.
We really
We're going
need
to
know.
continue to beg for some answers at YouTube help. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we covered everything. That is the conversation. So thank you, everybody, for listening in, and good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.